Good evening to all the participants and also on our participant on Facebook. They are following us on our ITKAM site. Facebook. So it's 6 p.m. and I will say that we could start the Italian talk. I also start the registration right now. Okay.
Perfect. So, buonasera, guten Abend, good evening to all our esteemed guests and all the viewers that are following us online on Facebook, and welcome to the second ITKAM talk. So tonight we are going to talk about digitalization in Europe and the reform of major projects of common European interests. I am Eliomaria Narducci. I am the moderator tonight. I am the Secretary General of ITKAM, the Italian Chamber of Commerce for Germany. This year is an important year for us. The Italian Chamber of Commerce for Germany has reached 110 years old. And we decided to celebrate this year to these events that we are hosting. So my moderation will be quick. The format of this talk is short, so we will be finished in 45-50 minutes. Joining with me this evening are our President of the Italian Chamber of Commerce for Germany, Professor Emanuele Gatti, then Ms. Iris Plöger from BDI, and Mr. Pan from Confindustria. The three speakers will discuss the expansion of Europe's digital sovereignty and the focus on data, technology, and infrastructure within the Digital Strategy 2030. And then I will introduce one of our esteemed members, FeralpiGroup. Ms. Laura Tolettini is here with us tonight, and she will present the digital growth developed by FeralpiGroup together with Google and SAP. And I take the chance also to thank FeralpiGroup for the generous support in order to realize the meeting today. And now let me introduce you Emanuele Gatti, our president, who will give the general introduction to our webinar.
Grazie Elio. Dear Mrs. Plöger, dear Stefan, dear Mrs. Tolettini, dear ITKAM members and friends, this evening at the second edition of our new event series, ITKAM Talk, I'm very pleased to address to the topic of digitalization in Europe. Due to the corona pandemic, there is no more time to lose in digitalization. For health management in Europe, for a stronger digitalization of the public sector, for the European-wide implementation of our ambitious climate goals and the competitiveness of European industry, it is essential to rely increasingly on a uniform system of digitalization in Europe. The EU internal market, with over 500 million people and market leaders company, is the central lever for continuing to shape the international economic structure and establishing Europe as a relevant player. Major European industrial nations such as Germany and Italy can make a significant contribution to stronger digitalization with bilateral or multilateral agreements, especially if they are supported by the major national industrial associations such as BDI and Confindustria. That is why I'm particularly pleased to be able to discuss this evening with representatives of both industrial associations, dear Mrs. Plöger, dear Stefan. The progressive digitalization is also in the interest of EU citizens, as shown by the Eurobarometer 2020. The annual EU survey revealed that a majority of EU citizens, 59%, agree to share some of their personal data in a secure way to improve public services, especially if it can, for the 42% of the interviewed, improve medical research and care, for the 31%, be a crisis response, or for the 26%, improve public transportation and reduce air pollution. Together, we should therefore use the digital decade proclaimed by the EU Commission in March this year to digitally upgrade our economy, politics, and society, and make them fit for the future. Germany and Italy can play a pioneering role. According to internal conversation with our ITKAM members, the following 4 pillars should determine the digital compass. First, education and training of human capital to provide companies with highly skilled digital professionals. As the Digital Economy and Society Index, DESI 2020, underline, there is a lack of skilled workers across Europe. Without a skilled digital workforce, however, it is impossible for businesses to drive digitalization forward. Second, secure, high capacity and sustainable digital infrastructures. By 2030, all households in the EU should have a gigabit connection, and all populated areas should be covered by 5G networks. Again, looking at the results of the 2020 Digital Economy and Society Index, we see that connectivity improved significantly in Germany, but a significant digital divide between urban and rural areas persists. Italy, on the other hand, is still below the EU average in terms of connectivity. However, an efficient digital infrastructure is the basis for a rapid progress in terms of digitalization. Third, companies' digital transformation. Here, it is particularly important to support small and medium-sized enterprises whose digitalization is not yet advanced, especially as far as the B2C channel is concerned. For example, according to DESI, only 10% of the SMEs in Italy sell their products or services online. In Germany, the share is barely higher at 17% of the SMEs. However, a survey by Bitkom revealed that even half of German SMEs themselves state that they are not digital ready. Something has to change quickly if we want to survive in international competition. Fourth, digitalization of the public sector. Digitalization of the public sector must be another focus in the coming years. As the DESI 2020 Digital Index shows, Germany is only ranked 21st and thus far below the EU average. Italy's public sector is hardly better off at 17th place. The digitalization of the public sector should focus above all on the health sector in order to introduce a digital patient file and a digital vaccination certificate as quickly as possible. I'm pleased to be here today together with Mrs. Iris Plöger from BDI and Mr. Stefan Paz from Confindustria about the joint strategy for digitalization in Europe, and to be able to present the best practices of FeralpiGroup with Mrs. Laura Tolettini. Such best practices of cooperation between Italy and Germany show us what we can achieve together. Many thanks in advance to all 3 speakers this evening. Thanks to Villa Vigoni for the support to this series of events. And last but not least, thanks again to the audience to be here with us today and enjoy the talks. Thank you.
Thank you, President Gatti. So we start with our first speaker, Miss Plöger. After the university studies in Kiel and in the United Kingdom, Ms. Plöger worked as an academic assistant at the Institute of Economic and Tax Law at Christian Albert University in Kiel, Germany, and then as a lawyer specializing in competition and IT law at the international law firm Freshfield Brookhouse, Delegate, from 2000. In 2004, she joined the law department at the Federation of German Industry, the BDI, and in 2015 became head of the BDI department, Digitalization and Industrial Value Chains. Since 2016, she has been head of the BDI department, Digitalization, Innovation and Healthcare. Since April 2017, Iris Plöger has been a member of the BDI executive board. So, Ms. Plöger, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Narducci, also for the kind introduction. And dear Mr. Gatti, dear Mr. Pan, dear Mrs. Tolettini, ladies and gentlemen. Well, once again, thank you very much for the kind invitation to speak at the second ITKAM talk on the important topic on digitalization in Europe and the reform of important projects of common European interest, short Ipcei. And this just 2 days away from your Festa della Repubblica, as I'm aware, so quite an important time for us to discuss about Europe and Italy. Looking back in 2 decades from now to the years 2020 and 21, what will we remember? Sure, at first you just mentioned that major pandemic in 100 years, millions of victims worldwide, long-term health effects, massive restrictions of our personal freedoms, but also a lack of face masks. At least in Germany at the beginning, a run on toilet paper, yeast and notebooks. But much more important, a lack of SARS pharmaceutical raw materials and microprocessors. As a reaction to the everyday consequences of the pandemic, a term suddenly appeared in the political arena and in all media that is not new, but recently very hip: resilience. Already in 2015, the political debate in Germany and the European Union has been fueled by thoughts on how Europe can regain its digital and technological sovereignty or even strategic autonomy. This has come in the face of an increasing dominance of tech companies based in the US and China. What happened? GAFA, a provider of a search engine, an online book retailer, a messenger service, a manufacturer of electronic gadgets, and a provider of PC software, understand the basic principle of digitalization better and faster than everyone else. Scale does matter. For sure, no new recognition in 2021, but the answer is still being awaited. These days, the European Commission is trying to strengthen competition in the digital realm through the Digital Services Act and the Digital Markets Act. Yes, Europe needs to strengthen its resilience, digital sovereignty, or even strategic autonomy. Calling for a digital decade, as the Commission just did, seems a sensible move. But what is actually required are concrete steps. We must understand resilience as the ability and capacity to withstand systemic discontinuities and adapt the new risk environments. Companies and states alike have to be efficient in managing crisis and in renewal as they are in maintaining the status quo. Hence, Europe has to roll up its sleeves and focus on developing its own competencies and key technologies. This is precisely where European initiatives such as Gaia X and the Ipceis can help us. Let me give you some details on the Ipceis and Ipcei reform. Currently, Ipcei are developing dynamically in the sectors of energy and climate, digitalization and automation, and related areas. The green and digital transformation at the same time requires enormous investments and a high degree of coordination also across sectors. From BDI's point of view, IPCIs are important instruments for strengthening Europe's innovative potential and securing Europe's competitiveness and technological sovereignty, also in a global context. In particular, they can enable breakthrough innovations that are significant, especially those with a high transformational character, for example, hydrogen. A pan-European perspective is therefore essential. So far, only 3 IPCIs proposed by EU member states have been accepted by the Commission. The IPCI on the Fehmarn Belt, the IPCI Microelectronic 2 to support the EU semiconductor industry, and the IPCI Batteries to support research on battery and battery storage capacities. This is far from being enough. What raises hope is that the Commission has recently announced in its update on the EU Industrial Strategy for May 5th that the Commission will, quote, continue to support member states' efforts to pool public resources via important projects of common European interest in areas where the market alone cannot deliver breakthrough innovation, as has been the case in the areas of batteries and semiconductors. Furthermore, the communication says that EU member states and companies have expressed interest to engage in additional IPCIs, such as Next Generation Cloud, also known as Gaia-X, hydrogen, low carbon industry, pharmaceuticals, and a second IPCIs on cutting edge semiconductors, which the Commission will examine attentively as project plans reach maturity. Let me finally say a few words about the IPCI reform seen from a competition law perspective. BDI welcomes the revision of the notice in the light of new policy objectives of the European Commission and the experience with the first IPCIs. We would like to emphasize that the approval of an IPCI must always be subject to a robust competition law assessment though. In particular, BDI shares the Commission view that IPCIs can underpin all policies and actions that achieve common European objectives, in particular, the European Green Deal, the digital strategy, the new industrial strategy for Europe, and Next Generation EU. IPCIs are able to address important market or systemic failures that could not otherwise be addressed and may have positive spillover effects on the internal market and the society as a whole. In addition, BDI has made some recommendations toward the European Commission as to how the draft notice can be further improved. BDI supports the references to new political strategies, e.g. the European Green Deal, because this creates coherence with important frameworks in the EU. However, the Commission should make it even clearer that IPCI can be relevant for all economic sectors and measures that fulfill common European objectives, including those that will only be developed in the future. Fast approvals. The time span between applying for funding and the start of the actual project must be speeded up. And the IPCI process in their individual member states must be better coordinated to ensure a timely realization. IPCIs are projects in highly competitive international fields. Time is an important factor in establishing and maintaining a competitive edge. Once an IPCI is approved, funding must be dispersed according to a predictable schedule, including synchronized funding decisions in the participant member states to ensure investment security for private partners. Commercial use. IPCIs are intended to enable industry to close the gap between R&D&I and economically viable production. BDI welcomes the fact that the eligible costs shall also include the costs for the first industrial deployment. However, the Commission should examine whether commercial activities could be extended a bit more into the production phase. The per se exclusion of production-related activities seems too rigid and not suitable for achieving strategic EU objectives. The SME participation was already mentioned. BDI welcomes the initiative to involve SMEs more in IPCIs. However, the bureaucratic burden for SME should be kept as low as possible. Moreover, involving SME should not exclude other larger applicants. And co-financing. The Commission requires that the aid beneficiary must make a significant co-financing contribution to the project. It should be borne in mind, a high co-financing contribution can make it more difficult for SMEs and startups to participate in the IPCI. Finally, the EU must respond to increasing state incentives and subsidies for certain industries outside Europe. For example, subsidies from China and the US in the 2 to 3 digit billion range. IPCI play an important role in enabling European companies to continue to invest in Europe and on a global plane. The proposal for regulation on foreign subsidies distorting the internal market is one step in the right direction. In the same context, the matching clause in the IPCI notice addressing potential higher subsidies to competitors in third countries should also be revised. This clause has never been invoked and does not work. To resume my remarks, there's a lot on our plate, so let's get started. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm looking forward for the discussion later on.
Thank you, Ms. Plöger. Very interesting points. We continue with Mr. Pan. Mr. Stefan Pan graduated from the Vienna University of Economics and Business, Austria, and has a track record for entrepreneurship and European relations, as evidenced by the presidency of Assoprenditori between 2011 and 2017, his membership in the board of the Bolzano Chamber of Commerce since 2014, the membership in the Scientific Advisory Committee of SRM, Center for Economic Studies and Researches on Italian Regional Economy, in the European and Mediterranean perspective since 2019. Mr. Pan is president of Pan Surgelati SRL, a family-run food company for innovative tradition in Alpine and Mediterranean cuisine, and he is delegate of the president of Confindustria for Europe. Last but not least, he is the member of the board of trustees of Villa Vigoni. So, Mr. Pan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm really happy to be part of the panel, and it is a fascinating subject. ITKAM made a very good decision in bringing this in the center of a broad discussion. Say hello to the president, Emanuele Gatti, Emanuele. Say hello to Ms. Plöger of BDI, to Laura Tolettini, which will explain the practical aspects. Ms. Plöger said it already, scale does matter. And that's where we are aware, getting aware after the pandemic. It's not so that we didn't see how important Europe is in this geopolitical challenge we have to face, but it made clearer that Europe has fragile chains, value chains that have been strengthened, and this helps to recreate and rethink about the vision we have of Europe. Europe is the place on the globe which has the highest social standards of the globe, even though we are only 7% of the global population. And the backbone of this is still our competence and our industrial backbone. that is able to be really the backbone of this development. Now we are facing many cultural shifts, and especially in the world of digitalization, we are running the risk of losing the train. Therefore, we have to commit ourselves, and the pandemic helped very much in waking us up. It was a wake-up call that there's a lot to be done. If we look at the platform economy globally, we see that we are really far behind of that what we need. The United States have a percentage of 74% on platform economy. Asia with China, mainly with China, of 21%, and Europe has only 4% of that big cake. And if we don't have this cake, we will lose our capacity of being the place on the continent which has the strongest sense for the environment, which has the strongest sense for social opportunities, of a strong social net, and this can only be achieved by going strongly into this digitalization as a basic tool. We had a very important day, not only in 2 days that we have the Festa della Repubblica, we had a very important Friday a few days ago, where our government, and mainly our Minister for Digital Development, Vittorio Colau, and the Minister of the Economic Development, Giorgetti, made the starting shoot of the Italian hub of Gaia-X, where Confindustria is taking the leading part for this project. So we are really starting to making things happen. If scale does matter, time matters as well. And now we are on the run. We started on Friday, and Confindustria coordinates the movement of creating the clouds, and those things don't happen out of the blue. Creating clouds is a massive investment. It takes a lot of coordination, and it takes a lot of coordination within Europe. We try to make Italy fit for it, bringing together the world of research, the world of the universities, the world of the schools, the world of the industry, the world of SMEs that has to be taken by hand to go in here and creating this infrastructure that has to be aware of the interoperability of the test beds for SMEs, creating the clouds, the databases that are able to proceed the data we have to bring together for enhancing, for fostering sectors that otherwise would fall back. Health pandemic showed how important the health sector is as industry. The education, the skills, Emanuele Gatti made the point very clearly how much skills are necessary, and without the right skills, we lose the train. And those things happened after already long work that started already 4 or 5 years ago, together with our friends of France as well. We had the Alliance de l'Industrie du Futur from the French side, the platform Industrie 4.0 together with BD in the German side, and the Piano Transazione 4.0 from the Italian side. We started to do this without knowing that it was a pandemic coming, but the pandemic gave additional boost to it. So we are really putting all things together. We are creating the committees. We are bringing together our regional hubs in Italy that will be interconnected, and all those will be connected in a European hub. So European hub, digital hub, Gaia-X is really starting now. It's going to get bones and flesh, and will be as a new giant on the globe. This enables the other part we have been speaking about, the Ipceis. And Plöger said already the important things very clearly. These are parts of a vision. We need European champions. We need European competence in new developments where we need to break through. We are not there yet, and that's can only be done by a lot of research where all parts of Europe come together. Our industry, BDI, Confindustria, MEDEF, Business Europe are bringing all those things together. We know that this is one of the main things we have to show that it is possible to create these common European projects where the new spirit must be. It's not important whether I'm Italian or German or Spanish. It's European. And only if we are able to come together to develop this strong vision, we are able to transmit this transmission to the young people, to the young generation. It's the program is called New Generation EU, and that's a reason. And it's really about reinventing that we have a mission that can change Europe and do the things better. Mr. Plöger mentioned already that the IPCEIs are apart, and we, as Confindustria, sees the things in the same way. That in the document of the new industrial strategy that has been rewritten or reacted on the 5th of May, the IPCEIs are there. We see that the analysis, the part of analysis is well done, but we are not happy with the follow-up. There's still not enough strategy. On the IPCEIs, we must be more courageous. We shall not think about regulating and hyper-regulating everything. We should look much more on how to create new business fields that bring together value chains from big enterprises to small enterprises to SMEs. This is what we have to do on a European level. Otherwise, we really lose the train again if we look at the Chinese developments or the developments of the United States. In one word, let us really be more courageous in developing those things, in making the energy free. The energy has to flow because there is a lot of enthusiasm in young people that wants to have a challenge that makes our continent more resilient. We had a time where we've seen what America First have done. Our approach should be of Europe ahead, which is not muscular, which is more concentrated on the capacity of visions, of intelligence, of bringing things together. And for bringing those things together, we have this digital transformation, we have the twin transformations of the sustainable thing that can't be done without the digital skills, and the IPCEIs of the peak of the iceberg, of a still very big iceberg we have to bring out of the water, and so that we see the enormous treasure we have in our hands, and we can build it together. It's the first time where really I have my personal impression, the entrepreneurs, the men and women of whole Europe feel this common vision that has to be done. It's the right moment, and altogether, I am sure it will be a new era in Europe. Thank you for the time. I think the 10 minutes are already over, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Pan. We go now to Miss Laura Tolettini. Laura Tolettini, already during her studies in international relationship at the Università Cattolica di Sacro Cuore, started gaining the first experience in Germany, especially working by ASF Elbstadtwerke Feralpi GmbH, becoming head of talent management and head of the purchasing office. Since 2019, Laura Tolettini is digital integration manager at Feralpi Holding, and she's member of the board of trustees of the Italian Chamber of Commerce for Germany. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Narducci, and I also thank you for the introduction of the previous speaker. So I say hello to everybody, to Mr. Pan, to the President Gatti, and to Mrs. Plöger. And I did a short presentation because I want to share really in a nutshell what does for us mean the digital transition. I hope you can see my screen. Okay. So you already said who I am, and now it's time to say who we are. So you talk about resilience, you talk about digitization, you talk about sustainability. So that's everything in a nutshell for the steel industry, because cycles in innovation and in industrial cycle in the steel industry, it's something that we know very precisely. And Feralpi is a family company which was founded in 1968 by Carlo Nicola Pasini and some of other family members. And it has already in its DNA something that is really actual and current to nowadays. It is to grow and produce with three important goals, which is in respect of people, planet, and of course to have an economic model. Otherwise, we will not be here. And I will show you this short video so you can see really very shortly who we are. So when we are talking about us, we are talking about an international level, and already in our roots is the concept of cooperation, bilateral cooperation, because we have a very strategic site in Germany, which is in Riesa, that you already cited in my presenting myself, and where I had the pleasure to work for kind of 10 years. And it's very important because we have already this exchange in the technological practices and best practices. And what is digital for us? So you already mentioned the topic of Industry 4.0, which is started as term in Germany during the Hanover Fair, and which is based on the connectivity. And connectivity for itself doesn't mean stand alone. It means to together with someone internally, so to integrate your production with these 9 technologies. These are based especially on the cyber physical system, which are embedded in plants and machines in order to make machine products and then communicate together to have a more effective production, a more effective quality, and of course to have an optimization of resources. And that's our strategy. So the strategy is to use these and to grow in this journey, because sometimes it's easier to say than to apply. And we will see why. To grow with this technology, which is a self-controlling technology, a monitoring system, in order to make a right use of the resources. So the topic of sustainability and digitization are strictly connected. And as you mentioned already, with the new financing system of the Next Generation EU, there are the 2 pillars for the growth of Europe and to reach the very challenging objectives until 2030 for the climate neutral economy. And of course, there is also the pillar of social, because you cannot have a motivating people if you're not working in a very comfortable and safe and secure workplace. And of course, the economic pillar, because without the economic pillar, there is no company that can be sustainable in a longer term perspective and have a competitive advantage. And steel for itself is a recyclable material. So with digitization, we didn't invent anything about sustainability, because steel is already a recyclable material. So we already conveying this part in our business models. And of course, you already mentioned, and I really agree, and not only me, of course, people are the discriminant part of this journey, because you can have the technology, but without skills, without people, you cannot do anything. People and partners. So you have to be, you already said, you have to be the courage to go in a network and to cooperate, because it's impossible alone. Also in an optic of a circular economy. For itself, circular economy with the term circular means that you have some stakeholders that you cooperate together in order to achieve important goals for the environment and the economy. But of course, there is another challenge, that is also the level in the supply chain, the level of maturity of technology and the level of maturity of people, which it's not done, or which is not caused only by the competencies, but also by capitals that are needed to do this investment. And of course, financing and these new funds are helping us. So here we are. We are talking about partnership, innovation. You already mentioned we started our project with a lot of partners, and one of the most important partners, our leader in the market, are SAP, which is German rooted, and also Google. But we didn't do this alone, because we have local partners like Regest and Ware who are working with us. And one of the main topics is, of course, organization, processes, standardization of procedure, and also change management. So we are working in an optic of contamination and open innovation. We cannot do everything alone. We have to look for something that is outside of ourselves. And to conclude, we'll focus on these concepts. So one of the our projects are focused on the integration, not only in the production itself, but also in the supply chain. So we were looking to integrate also our information in an optic of quality integration, also for useful also for suppliers and customers, using this digital data, the digital twin, in order to convey information which can be useful for ourselves, but also for our supply chain, in an optic of sustainable quality. And one of our main sub-products is the billets, of course, the steel billet. And if we are able to control for auto processes, especially in specialties and special steels, we are able to look for also better performance for our customer too. And you know that Industry 4.0 is aimed to integrate the entire supply chain. And of course, it means to have customization, not only for our clear customer, but also internally, so to create data. Big data is a very huge topic, because big data is related to a variety of sources of data, very different and dishomogeneous one for another. And the challenge here is to create some veracity and some homogeneity in this data in order to interpret this data to be useful for your plant, to optimize your resources, your production, your quality, and also in the supply chain. But I'm almost concluded, and I just wanted to underline what is really the vision behind it. And the vision behind it, it's not invented in the last century. It's rooted very long ago. So if you think these two geniuses, which are also representing our session today, which is also based on the cooperation between Italy and Germany, they already said something that's very important. So it's not invented by me, of course. Already Leonardo da Vinci, its art and crafts, already underlined how everything is connected together, and it's up to us to see how it works and to take the strategy behind it. And of course, you have to come beyond the culture of it's not invented here. So if you're doing the things almost in the same way, it's so far so good, because there is also incremental innovation, but you have to be courageous enough, as you already said, to go beyond and to do something different, and to do something different together with someone. And so I really thank you for this opportunity, and also looking forward for the discussion.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Laura. We now start the Q&A session, so we start the discussion. Since we do not have that much time, I have collected some questions that I will generally ask to all of you speakers. So who wants to answer can answer right away. So the first one is from Professor Gatti. What can we do better to keep in Europe the young IT specially trained in Europe? Who wants to answer? Mr. Pan, maybe?
We have to go into the schools and open STEAM spaces and explain that and be aware that the awareness, the likeness to play with data starts already in the kindergarten. Let's open everything to a creative approach. And that's what Confindustria launched again a few weeks ago, to go into every school in a special room and show how the world changes and how it can be done by opening the eyes, opening an approach that has a lot with playing, with creativity. It's a cultural thing, and the digitalization is a part of our culture. So let's start from the very early beginning, having the STEMs, sciences a part of our humanistic culture, and let's be digital with a critical view, starting from the schools. So it's never too soon to start with it.
And following this question, there is another question. Is there the possibility to get funding, grants, sponsorship for digitalization training? I guess Ms. Plöger could try to answer.
Well,
at least for Germany.
Well, I'm sure that there are a lot of funding programs, but to be honest, now we believe, since we had the pandemic, we are all digitalized by now. But I think this is still a rumor, and we have to be really aware that people are still reserved to enter into this digital life. And we've been talking about digital education in schools for many years in Germany, and I hate to say that only slight steps forward we've moved, and we've seen that in the pandemic that it was not easy to shift to the digital world from one day to the other. I think it's a whole picture we have to see there, why people are so reluctant in going into digital experiences. And I think the way forward for young people is to be open-minded. What we always hear is that the attraction, especially of the US, is the openness and innovative processes. And I think we really have to do much better than we have done in the past. And I think we have talked a lot about creating European Union of course, economics, but also of values. And this could be an advantage if you compare it to other parts of the world, but we have to combine these values with openness and innovation. I think that is one of our biggest challenges.
Agree. We have a double question both for Frau Plöger and Mr. Pan. So, which are the currently defined important projects of common European interests, so the Ipceis, and why are they a good chance both for the German and Italian industry? Mr. Pan?
Yeah. They are a brilliant chance because it's bringing us even more together. And this is a European project, and we have the first and the second industrial nation in Europe. We have to go on with a good example, and what our associations can do. It's a very important thing. It's really going out and take our enterprises, especially the SMEs, by the hands and show that it's not impossible, that it can be done, and if you bring together people with a vision, you create a new dimension. It's really tough work, hard work, and therefore we are here as associations. It's a wonderful thing we can do, and it opens up everybody. It's about open culture. It's about creating something together, and as we are already interconnected, we have seen through the pandemic how important it was to keep the green lanes open, because Europe is like a pulsing heart, and we have a chamber of one heart in Italy, the other chamber is beating in Germany, and another one is in France, and we are all beating together. We have a common heart, and therefore we have to do it together. And the more we do it together, the more natural it will be that we have this European understanding that it is a common thing. It's a common heart that beats in everybody of us.
Thanks. Frau Plöger, do you want to add something?
I totally agree with Mr. Pan. I mean, this really have to be pan-European projects for sure. We can only make it together. That's clear. And you've mentioned Gaia X before. This is one of our great opportunities to create a network of cloud operators that create well, a safe environment, especially for SME. The large companies, we feel they can always help themselves in negotiating with huge partners in the world, but we have to support the SME to have a trusty environment where they can grow and where they can experience. And I think the IPCIs are simply enablers for next step, next generation innovations, for the big innovations where we see a certain market failure. If you look at the only 3 IPCIs we have in place, one, for example, is for batteries, and I think we could be much further in e-mobility if we had the guts to enter into the batteries prior to that, but we were reluctant to go there, and that's why we have to keep up and speed up in that field. And the same with the semiconductors. We have the first IPCI in place, but we have a huge demand for that, and that is not a surprise. If you look at the figures, how many appliances will be connected, we've just seen the presentation on IoT. And on the mobility, of course, we need a lot of semiconductors. And right now, we have to ask ourselves what kind of semiconductor production and design capacities and competence do we want to see in Europe? And do we want to be rather conservative, looking at the needs we have today? Or do we have to look into the future and be a bit more risky and to create what I called resilience before? That is a huge discussion. I do not know the answer by now, but I know it's a discussion we desperately have to lead.
Thanks a lot. We have only the time for one last question, this time to Laura Tolettini. Have you considered a European alternative as partner for your digitalization project, I guess, instead of Google?
That's a good question. So I will respond honestly. So of course, we are also an economic model and reality, and we select our partner. And Google, it's internationalized, and of course, it has also the infrastructure to do something which is secure also in terms of cybersecurity. But the very interesting thing is that they have local partners, as already mentioned. So we work also with local partners because we have also our site in Germany, and we have to work with people which are also German speaking. So it's important to stay also local. So many of these partners seems to be globalized, but they also have very, very, very close local partner too. So otherwise it would be impossible to work because we are a company which is working this way.
Very good. So we were good with the time. We stayed on time all the way. So again, thanks a lot for having taken part to our second ITKAM Talk. ITKAM Talk is, as I said before, was invented to celebrate the 110th birthday of ITKAM, and we thank a lot our partner Villa Vigoni, who also is organizing the meeting with us. Just a couple of reminders. The next meetings will be on the 14th of June and on the 28th of June. And the topics will be smart cities and entrepreneurship. The program of the next webinars are on our website. And if you have any question, any concern, you can contact us anytime. So again, thanks a lot. Grazie, vielen Dank. Auf Wiedersehen, arrivederci.
Thank you.
Arrivederci a tutti. Bye, grazie mille.
Arrivederci,
Arrivederci a tutti.
grazie.
Ciao a tutti.
Arrivederci.
Ciao a tutti, arrivederci.